No, if I have to, I'll just sort of talk to the next day. Yeah.
I'll call the meeting to order. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory and additional homeland of the Métis Nation. I'll introduce the panel member. Laurie Davidson to my left, and I'm Marcel Larondo. I'll be chairing. The assessor today will be Roddy Pantanelli, right? Pantanelli. Okay. And the administrative assistant today is Belen Rocco. We will be hearing applications for a revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application. We will limit discussions to those matters. The statements that applicants or the assessor make at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matter must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessment of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decision with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to the assessed value of ore classification, or the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to an application of exemption from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today, and the session will close after the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the Board order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. Swear them in, please. Oh, put your phones on silent. I'm always the worst offender. Red is dead.
I can start.
Please state your full name.
Rodrigo Pantina.
And you serve the Mr. President of the Treaty 1 Please state your full name.
Jared Story.
And you swear the Mr. President
You better make it dependent.
You know, and I forgot mine too at the office. It's so funny you say that.
I don't know.
Because I noticed you guys were writing, and then I thought to myself, like, oh, I left it right on my desk.
You don't have an extra pen, do you?
Yeah.
Bellen might have
You
one.
got an extra?
I'll go with Bellen.
Okay.
Nice. It's just in case.
Oh, and it's my favorite pen.
I realized when I sat down, like,
Oh, yeah. I got my
covered all my
favorite.
bases. As simple as it can be.
Okay, that's withdrawn up here, right? There's no 15-1, it's just withdrawn.
Yeah.
So we're starting at 1251,
There's one more.
2596 Portage Avenue. And it's just assessed value, is that correct? Amount of assessed value.
That's right.
When you are ready, Roddy.
Okay. Okay, so the file number for the current subject property is 19-2674. The roll number is 0707-002-6100. The address is 2596 Portage Avenue. The 2020 assessed value that went out is $1,712,000. There's one building associated with the subject property. The actual year and the effective year built are both 1995. We have a land area on this property of 41,040 square feet. A leasable area of 2,244 square feet. And I have a recommendation built into my evaluation of the property, so I could continue with the evaluation, or I could just offer you the value that I have. It's under your guidance on.
Well, let's check, see what he thinks of your recommendation. That's
Okay.
the 1,643,000?
Yes, that's right. So
Are you
the
okay with that
assessment.
number?
So that's
Stop.
Yeah, sorry, because the value that went out on our.
Sheet.
So we have a value here that's a combination of an income approach combined with an additional land value that we have calculated. And when you go through the parameters of the income valuation, we have $19.01 per square foot. We have a vacancy of 3% that has been put in place, expenses at 2%, shortfall at $750, a capitalization rate of 6.5%, which gives us a revised value and a recommended value of $1,643,000.
So what is your resulting NOI number?
The resulting NOI of this is $40,045.
And the cap is 6.5.
But the issue is the cap rate. I'd like to proceed, just on the basis of the cap rate.
Then put the whole thing down for it, Roddy, okay, so you have
Okay.
it all?
So if you will go to, if I can direct your attention to page 9. I have some pictures of the subject property. On page 9, I've included the blank parcel image on the top, and then we have an enhanced image on the bottom of the pictometry, which shows the parcel in question. And you'll notice that there is a big, there is an empty space of land on the parcel where the building is on the one half and the empty parking lot is on the other half. That parking lot is what we've calculated for excess land. And if you go to the next page, on page 10, I have some Google Street View images that I've provided. And if you look at the bottom image, it shows that there has been advertisement to lease the pad site for what it is that they're looking for to generate some value. And so we've taken the approach that we have put a revised income approach in place for the building as of the April 1st, 2018 reference, but have also included a excess land calculation. And if I can revert your attention to page 3. On page 3, I have a list of comparable rent lease rates for some market data to show the current market data of the area. And then if I can bring your attention to page 4, I have some vacant land comparables that shows some recent sales on some vacant lands in the surrounding neighborhood. And then at the very bottom is where I show my excess land calculation. So we did 60% of the total parcel area, which is 41,040 square feet. 60% of that we calculated to be the excess land. And then we have a property value of $41.71 per square foot. And that gave us a rounded value of $1,027,000. And I believe I have covered my bases on this presentation, so I'll just finish again by reiterating that we do have a revised recommended value from what went out. The recommended value is $1,643,000. And that's my presentation.
Questions?
Sorry. The recommendation is $1,643,000.
That's correct.
And the assessment was $1,712,000.
That's right. When the assessed value was generated, it had gone out as land value. And so when I was doing my revised valuation on it, that's when we realized that we made some.
So you're looking at the $1,643,000 though?
$1,643,000, that's right.
You're not looking at the $1,007,000. Is that that?
Yeah, I got it.
643.
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay. Shall I proceed? Yes.
Please do.
Have you
Questions?
Yes. Have you visited this site?
I did not get a chance during this cycle to visit. However, it's in my area where I live personally, so I have in personal travels. I've gone past the site. I haven't gone inside, just a visual exterior inspection.
Okay. So you're aware that this parcel abuts a great deal of residential area, correct? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. And now, just in the history of the appeals, in the last go around, the city didn't adjust for what I'm going to call the surplus land, but you're calling the excess land. You did not adjust for that at all.
I wasn't with the I wasn't involved in the assessment of the previous cycle, so I can't really speak to what the assessor would have done at the
It's no
time.
record of it though in your office, right?
From what I can see, that's correct, that there wasn't any adjustments done on it. However, each cycle is a fresh cycle, so we just took a fresh set of eyes at it, a fresh approach on it.
But if we go from last cycle's assessment to this cycle's assessment, if we add that extra land in, that would constitute a massive increase, would it not?
No, we're not using that number right now.
Again, we're not using the last assessment cycle and this assessment cycle where necessary.
Okay, just for the history. Okay. So you're aware that this is the former Robin's Donuts. It's architecturally branded, and it's been vacant for some time now.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. And the pad sites, the pad site, I should say, that have been on the market, they've been there since at least 2006 without any interest. Are you aware of that?
I wasn't aware of that.
Okay. All right. Now you said you're familiar with the area in general.
In general, I can speak to generalities of the area.
So across the street is the old Marigold. That's been vacant for some time. That whole strip is effectively vacant except for there's a moat of leathers in there, and they've been there for some time. But otherwise, it's generally vacant.
Generally might be a bit of a stretch. I'm not necessarily sure, as I can recall restaurants that have come and gone over time.
And now you've used a cap rate of 6.5. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And is that modeled?
It's model driven. Yeah.
And are you aware that, or do you know what cap rate the city used last cycle?
I'm not aware of the particular details of that.
In your opinion, has there been any cap rate compression from last cycle to this cycle?
The details of the cap rate studies are a little bit beyond my knowledge base, so I don't really feel comfortable speaking to how the cap rates are concluded, other than that it's model driven, and from my understandings of how the system works, the model inputs capitalization studies from many different sources and then calculates an appropriate cap rate for the property. So,
okay, but it is a 100 basis point downward adjustment from the last cycle.
it could be. Again, I'm not aware of the last assessment cycle's particular details.
All right. Now, in terms of our expenses, now this is the big sort of key issue this cycle. Now, I guess I'll just ask you: this is a property that is for lease, that's available. Now, if a broker was to go to a potential purchaser or somebody who's purchased property, do you think the market would recognize a 5% erosion to the income stream based on what we'll call non-recoverable expenses?
Can you rephrase the question? I'm not sure what you're asking me.
If I'm the broker and you're the potential purchaser, when I come to you with an offer, in the workup of the potential income stream, do you think I'm going to include an erosion to the potential net market income that represents a non-recoverable fee, what the city is heretofore called the management fee?
Oh, okay, so we're speaking of the 5%.
Right.
So my understanding is that this cycle we have done a study on the capitalization or on the expenses and the capitalization rates in place, and we have, based on the market data that we have analyzed, it has shown that the 5% management expense has been recovered in the information that was used to come up with the cap rates, the capitalization rates. So that's as far as my understanding goes, and I've included an addenda which speaks to it more. If you want to, I can get into the addenda and go over the particulars of the details.
My question is, the city has decided to admit that this non-recoverable that they've used for at least since the late 90s in this cycle. What I'm asking is, do you think the market recognizes an erosion to the income stream for non-recoverable expenses?
I would say the data that's been looked at in the mailers has shown that any sort of management fee that has been charged and the net rates that were used to come up with the capitalization studies has shown that the management expenses has been recovered.
Okay.
And again, that's as far as my understanding of it is. It's my first cycle around, so
you don't know.
This, as far as I understand, that's my knowledge of it.
Okay, that's fair. Now, the rents we don't have a huge issue with. I'm going to suggest that this is not excess land. And I'll ask you this: when you did your calculation, did you account for the main holding having a certain amount of parking, Or did you just take the building footprint out and then, did you base it on actual developable area?
So when we worked on it, I worked on it with my supervisor, and what we did is we took a look at the parcel, and we saw that you can see that there's an imprint of a footprint of a building site that appears like it was in this unit or in this piece of land here. And so what we did is that we just calculated the excess land, and we allowed a strip of land on the side for parking for the Robins. And so we calculate that if you look at the picture on page 9 of my brief, and if you notice that there is parking that goes along the north side of the building and along the east side of the building, there's some parking.
Okay.
And then from there, we did a measurement with some of the tools we had at the office, and then we calculated it was roughly 60% of the land was excess land.
Okay. And just for the sake of interest, and I don't believe that this is excess land. The owner is one of the largest land developers in the city, so presumably if they could develop it, they would, right? Okay. Now, in terms of your comps, your vacant land comps, comp 1, excuse me, that's 1721 Portage. That's where Integral Dental, they built a large 2-3-story dental office next to the St. James Hotel. Is that correct?
I don't have the image in front of me, but 1721, what do you say?
Yep. Comp 1. Vacant land comp 1.
My vacant land comp 1 is 2015 Portage Avenue 1. Are you looking at my same comparables list? Oh, vacant land. Sorry, we're talking about the vacant lands.
Yeah.
Okay, here's 1721. You know what? This was it was generated through some of the research that we did at the office. I was looking for some vacant land comparables, and they seem to be in the area, and they seem to be roughly around the size that I was looking for, and so I included it as market data.
So you didn't?
No, I didn't inspect any of these land comparables. I just included them as market data.
And I couldn't. I'm going to assume that the role changed for comp 2. Do you know what that is, or if that was developed, or is that? Can you give me any sense?
Again, we have a list at the office of some vacant land that has been vetted, and then we have access to the data, and we can pull from there and then try to find something that's comparable to the subject property land.
And then comp 3 was a motivated purchase. That's River City Ford buying parcel next to them for extra space for the dealership, right? Or we don't know?
It could be. I'm unaware of those details. I would say if we're looking at the vacant land comparables, we have in the 3 that I've provided, there's a range of $37.39 at the low end to $42.96. I would point to comparable 3 for the vacant land being fairly comparable in land size. $39.58 a square foot is what that came out to, and we have our subject property value at $41.71. Okay, so I would appear to be in the range of what the vacant land would be.
For developable land.
For developable land.
By motivated purchasers.
Yeah, for developable land, that's right.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Lori, do you have any questions?
Just a quick one for my own clarification.
Yeah,
So you revised the assessment to 1.6 million?
that's right.
So is that the building and the excess land?
That's correct. So
Okay.
if you look on the
Yeah, I did see that.
on the valuation stream on page 5,
Yeah, I saw that.
I show all the workup for it, and then at the very bottom under the capitalized value, which would be the value for the building, we have
There's the land.
616,000. That's the additional land value.
Okay. And then for the restaurant, you're using a cap rate of 6.5.
That's right.
So on your model, because that's a model, correct?
Mhm.
On page 7, is it under retail? Like what property type is
So
it?
we have different, so this would be an example of a table of cap rates that we have, and unfortunately in this particular cap rate table, we don't actually have a restaurant parameters shown. Restaurants fall under retail, so we can say that it is somewhat in the retail cap rates that are provided from the 20th and 80th percentile.
Do you know what, like from your own modeling, what cap rates range for this type of restaurant?
I'm not aware of that
Okay.
particular detail at the moment.
So does the 6.5 reflect at all the fact that it's vacant or
Well, at the time,
vacation or anything?
as of April 1st, 2018, the Robins was still there,
It's still
so it
operating.
wasn't vacant as of the reference date. So It's quite possible. Again, I can't speak to the exact nature of how. My understanding is it was model driven, so the model comes up with the cap rate on it.
Okay, thank you.
Would that be okay?
Thank you, that's all my
Yeah, no
questions.
problem.
Your original value of $1,712,000, was that all land value then?
Yes, so what
Because
happened was that
I look at your number and it comes out to $1,711,000, exactly to the $1,712,000.
Yeah, so it went out as land value when it was generated, and then when we did our look at it is when we realized what had happened, and we did a revised value on it, a revised recommendation.
I just wanted to see that. When you pulled the 60% out, what did you end up leaving for your land to plan area for the building? Because you had 18.29, you took 60% out of the property. So what's left now for your land plan for the restaurant? Have you done that calculation?
No, I don't have that calculation. That's a good question. I don't have that calculation.
It's just there's certain requirements because it's in a suburban neighborhood
To have parking
to have
people
parking
sitting there.
for the building.
Right.
Did you allow enough for that building?
We worked on it together with my supervisor, and I believe that just based on how we looked, we had left the parking space, but beyond the exact details of that, I can't necessarily.
You don't know how
speak to.
many spaces you left?
No, we just, we worked on it together, and again, we had left space along the building for potential parking, and then just made a calculation based on what looked to be the developable portion of the parcel.
Behind is the drive-through.
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah. So on the
That
east,
space is definitely not.
that's definitely not parking. No, so we had calculated on the east side of the building there to have a strip or a row of parking, and then on the north side of the parcel where the building is situated.
The north side along Portage Avenue.
Along Portage Avenue there, yeah, to have a strip of parking there.
That's not very much there.
And there could be some excess also on the west side there. It appears that there is room for parking there as well.
On the west side?
On the west side, yeah, right at where the parcel is there, like where the parking lot is.
Yeah.
There could be some parking there as well.
The west side have some stalls there, but a few up the front, not very many.
Right.
Not for a coffee shop. So I just wondered if maybe you might have taken too much of the land by going to 60%.
Perhaps it could have. I mean, that the exact study to calculate exactly how many stalls wasn't in place, so there could be a possibility. This is just a calculation that we had put forward as a possible recommendation for an opinion of the value that this portion of the parcel can generate. I mean, if there's a pad site lease sign out, they're looking to generate value on the side of the parcel, so we tried to come up with some sort of a calculation on it. So.
What year did they do the land split on it? Take it from 2 lots to 1? 'Cause it's still showing the 2 addresses. So at one time it must have been a separate roll.
It must have been, yeah. I'm unaware of that particular detail.
You don't know when that was
No,
done?
I wouldn't have. It didn't come across
That
in
would
my
show us
research.
that would show us where the line was
Yeah.
between the 2 lots and the exact size. This was built in 95.
According to the records, yeah, it shows it was in 95, the year built.
So, by not knowing how many spaces you left for parking, how do we know we've actually got excess land then?
I'm wondering if perhaps
We should swear you in if you want.
Perhaps we should swear in the.
I could provide some additional comments.
Sure.
That might help. In this particular,
I don't
when
wanna-
it comes to the
Right,
particularities of the parcel.
Yeah, just because of the way the parcel is shipped up here.
I swear.
Please state your full name.
Michael Ward.
Please state your name to the extent that you feel what you've been
I do. So as Roddy has explained,
Yeah.
this initially went out at land value entirely, so the 1.7 million is based on our model-driven value as if land only. And that happens when the income value for the improvements there are exceeded or eclipsed by the total value of the land. The evidence also in the visuals of the signage and the advertising for a site available for development also is a clue to us that there's land in surplus of the single building that's on the site. The calculation on the percentage of area was not scientific by any nature. It was based merely on what appears to be a natural break in the parcel based on its existing configuration. So to answer your question on specific counts in terms of parking tied to a use, that scientific analysis wasn't done. There's also currently some question around its current use. At the time of the reference date, indeed it was occupied and used as a Robin's restaurant, but most recently has been occupied as an office. The office requirement for parking is not as onerous as the parking requirement for a restaurant. So it's difficult for us to predict how many parking stalls to allow for in a calculation where we're trying to estimate how much land is left on that west side for available development. So really what we did was we estimated to the best of our judgment from a corner point at the back here to the front street on Portage Avenue. It does not make a perfect parcel split because you have this, what may have been at one time an old laneway or something that angles down. We were working from the points in the back here to the front. So it is not an exact science, it is an estimation. And again, it's a way for us to recognize some income value for the parcel, the improvements on the parcel, rather than sit here and discuss solely the land value only. And that's really the extent of the analysis that went into establishing how that split or that surplus excess land is.
You're not aware of when they brought the book together, right?
Unfortunately, I'm not. Couldn't have that. And I'm happy to answer Mr. Story's questions if he has any based on my presentation.
I do, yes.
I'll finish.
But I'll let you.
I'll finish mine first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, we talked about a lot of vacancy on it, but you're only showing 3%. Do you know how long the vacancy was?
It's post-reference.
Oh, it's post-reference vacancy? It wasn't vacant prior to?
No, so as of the reference date of
It was
April 1st,
occupied by-
2019, Robbins was still on a lease with the building there, so.
Okay. And when you call it office, you're talking, that was during the campaign, I guess, right?
It was a temporary campaign
Yeah,
office.
so there was a temporary permit.
Yep.
It wasn't,
Yep.
they never
Nope,
changed.
No, never changed. Nope.
It's still registered as a restaurant. That was the other.
We still have it listed as a restaurant
Yeah.
in terms of its property use, yes.
And it's a neighborhood, one, so if there was another, it'd be considered a neighborhood mall, correct? If there was other, even with just one on it, still considered neighborhood.
Under a single roll number with a separate building there, for presumably a strip mall, which is what the footprint on page 9 would appear to have been
Yeah.
allowance for, it would fall to, because of the multiple uses, the neighborhood shopping center would be
Yeah.
likely property.
So under retail, it would be under neighborhood, which is 6.15 to 9.40, correct? When looking at,
On the cap rate,
Yeah.
You're talking about the outside source study and the
No,
80th.
I'm talking about your
The
study.
80th percentile, yep.
your 80, because your 20 percentile is 715, 80 percentile is 7.3.
That's the 20th and 80th percentile on neighborhoods, yes. Strip malls obviously is different than that, but neighborhood combined
Yeah.
cap rate.
So should it not fall in between the 7.15 and 7.3 then?
One of the things that you have to be careful of when you go shopping on this cap rate list is now you're dealing with, obviously with the addition of a strip mall on this particular parcel, you're no longer dealing with a footprint as small as this building is. This building's 2,200 square feet. The cap rate we typically find on smaller buildings is would fall lower than when you go to a larger improvement with much more significant.
But that would be because of the sale value, because it would be less sale value on the size of the building. But because this one's got a bigger footprint, would it not fall into that other zone as a neighborhood?
As a neighborhood shopping center with an additional,
Yeah.
but we're talking now about only 2,200 square feet, not 12,000 square feet.
But you're putting it on a 40,000 square foot, 41,000 square foot property, right? 40,
We're valuing the restaurant as an entity, and then valuing the land adjacent to that restaurant separately.
yeah, okay, so you're going down to 15,000 square feet for that restaurant then, on that property.
We haven't valued the rest, we're just saying that the restaurant as it would sit, these are the modeled parameters that come up for a restaurant of that size, 2,000 square feet. If this was a 7,000 square foot restaurant, we'd be talking about different cap rates.
That would entail us knowing what the parking ratio is for that restaurant, right? Because you have to have certain allocation for it. So we might have taken too much land over to the excess, is where I'm coming from.
It could be the case, yeah. Conversely, if we used office rates, we'd be dealing with a different set of cap
Correct,
rates.
but we can't use the office rates on the restaurant, though, can we?
But the same argument ties to that. If the last known use was an office, and we were to go to office parameters, we'd be dealing with a different set of rates in terms of rents, we'd be dealing with a different set of vacancy rates, we'd be dealing with a different cap rate, and we'd be dealing with different parking requirements.
Yeah, because
So
your 60% all ends up at 6.2 or around 20% on an office. So you'd be at the low end, that 6.2 on the percentile, right? On an office side. On your cap
Again,
rate.
it would depend on the size of the 80th and 20th percentile also built into that, because size is a variable in terms of the cap rate determination. You also have to determine whether the size of the building you're going to look at falls within the 20th to 80th percentile for size. A 2,000 square foot freestanding restaurant is probably going to fall very close to the edge of that 20th to 80th percentile in terms of freestanding restaurant. Likewise with an office, it's probably not its typical size. So there's a lot that goes into that 20th and 80th percentile. You have to deal with the bulk of what's our average restaurant size across the city, freestanding restaurant size, what's our average, to know where it would fall in terms of the rating. So it is, again, this page 7 has been provided as evidence or demonstration that what the model is predicting in terms of cap rate falls within what the industry is reporting in their reports from the 3 different providers.
You had some questions.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael.
Yep.
I'm sorry I'm making it so hard, but I'm just trying to...
Finding the methodology here a little bit
Yep.
confusing. Okay, so I guess the first thing, let's just go through the workup. 3% vacancy, last cycle was 4%. You've rated the economic reality is inferior at the present day than it was in the last cycle. Is that reasonable?
Are you asking me if restaurants are faring worse today than they were then, or are you talking about the specific property in question?
Well, I think the point of this exercise is to do a site-specific analysis, right?
Fair. That's fair.
Okay. So, does it make logical sense that the vacancy rate would go down cycle over cycle, given the economic realities of this property?
The vacancy rates are done based on a review of the market as a whole.
So not site-specific model.
Let him finish his answer before we jump in.
So it is indeed an indication of what we've estimated the market vacancy to be for this particular type of property. We have not made any provisions in this specific case at this specific site for a change in the occupancy or a change in to recognize any kind of chronic vacancy. It's our understanding at the time of the reference date, vacancy is an economic condition, and under the economic conditions at the time of the reference date, this was 100% occupied and hadn't had any vacancy since it was constructed in 1995, and yet we still apply a model vacancy of 3%.
All right. Again, so you've used a modeled parameter here as opposed to a site-specific analysis.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. In terms of the expenses, now this is, property is vacant, it was there on Saturday, it's completely vacant. You've mentioned that it was last used as an office. I'm going to suggest that's a bit of a stretch. That was Scott Gillingham's campaign office for a couple of months during campaign, so a temporary use, correct?
We already got the answer.
Yeah. Okay. And we wouldn't use this as an office because it's architecturally parametered as a well-used office. Okay. Now, in terms of the expenses, when this property eventually becomes leased again, can you tell me how those commissions and space marketing costs might be recovered? Since it's in the position of the city that they're all recovered.
You're talking about tenant inducements and tenant abatements?
No, I'm talking about leasing commissions.
Leasing commissions are not part of our analysis in terms of expenses.
Are they a real cost to an owner?
They may be, they may not be. But the leasing commissions are not part of our analysis or what we include in our expense allowance, which is non-recoverable.
Are you disputing their reality in the market, though? I'm
not disputing that they exist, and I'm not disputing that property owners will pay from time to time leasing commission, but we do not, it's not part of the expense analysis that we would include.
Not as of this year, but in the past year.
In the past, we still had a 2% non-recovered expense adjustment, and we had a 5% management allowance. And as the board and Altus have heard time and time again, based on our review of what's happening in the market, to a large degree and in the largest portion of properties that have been used for determining net rents, management is fully recovered.
Okay. All right. Now, in the last cycle, you used a 7.5 cap. This cycle is a 6.5. I'll ask the same question: have you seen any indication of cap rate compression that would lead you to believe that that's an appropriate cap rate versus last cycle?
Have we entered your cap rate study as evidence yet?
Yeah.
I believe you're looking at 6.5% cap rates in your cap rate study.
No, I actually have in our cap rate study, we have a Robbins Donuts on St. Mary's that sold at 7.6.
I'm looking to see where, is this it here?
It's the little one.
The little one?
The evidence that we've reviewed in terms of cap rates would suggest that for a restaurant of this size, 6.5% would be the appropriate cap rate.
So we have all model parameters. Now, last question. Now, if we're looking at the land value, there's no demolition permit in place that we're aware of. There's no intention to redevelop this site, correct?
Not that we're aware of.
And at the reference date, it was functioning as a Robbins Donuts, correct?
Correct.
And the last cycle, we used the going concern of the value of the business in place, correct?
Altus used that?
No, we agreed on it. We came to a value of $925,000 last cycle. So this would constitute a
and I would have to give the same response as Mr. Ponzini. I'm not familiar at this moment with the details of what was put forward.
I'm just concerned that if we're looking at land value without any kind of understanding of rezoning or demolition or again, what kind of parking allotment we're looking at, it feels like we're double dipping because we're counting the land as well as the going concern value of the business, right?
In this particular workup, it's a combination. Right. It's not, if we were to value this just as bare land, so the Robbins Donuts is branded, no one else is going to want it, we're knocking down the Robbins Donuts. Based on our study of land sales and the sampling of which has been provided on page 4, we're suggesting that the value of this parcel would be $1.7 million. $1,712,000 to be exact. We're saying that we're recognizing that there is a restaurant or a building on this parcel, and that it is indeed got the potential to have some income or revenue contribution. But there is still, even with someone paying rent in that building, there is still the potential that the owner of the parcel can develop the other portion of the lot. And we're recognizing that potential development by attributing some surplus land value to that portion on the east side. So when you look at our workup, we're saying the restaurant building and some allocation of land for the use of the restaurant is worth $616,000.77. And the balance of the parcel that would be available for pad site development, which is being advertised at $1,027,000. So it's not double dip. It's not what we're saying, 1.7 million plus 600,000 for the restaurant.
That is what you're saying, isn't it? That's what I see here. You've got 1 million.
No, page number 5, 616,000 is the capitalized value of the restaurant, Additional land value, $1,027,000.
Right.
Total $1,623,000.
Right.
The $1,027,000 is not the total land value for the entire parcel. It's only the value that
Right.
we've attributed to the portion on the east side.
Right, but you don't know what a potential new building might be like, or how much parking might be there, what the mandatory setbacks might be, or if there's any sort of consideration for the fact that this backs onto residential. That's just a.
We valued it strictly on its land rate. We haven't made any determination other than estimated some area of land.
And those pad sites, that pad site advertising has been up since at least 2006, with no interest. Are you aware of that?
I have no knowledge of how long it's been advertised, what effort has gone into marketing it, whether it's been advertised beyond the sign that's on the parcel, I couldn't say.
And it's a large land developer, so presumably it would be reasonable. You don't know. Okay, those are my questions. Thanks.
I think we're good now. Lori, let's open it here. Any more questions for you after you hear that?
I just do have one question. For the lease of the pad site, what is it being advertised at?
We have no knowledge of what's being proposed there or what rates may be being asked. Beyond the signage that's there, we don't have any other details.
And just quickly, do you know what the average increase in assessment? I know we're looking at market value, but what the average increase in this market region for restaurants was?
I don't know, not specifically for restaurants. No.
Do you know if this region is higher or lower than the average?
I really don't. Unfortunately, we don't have the stats that fine.
Do you know if it's a more popular area than others? I guess I'm asking, do you have any knowledge then of whether this is average, above average, because you're using it on average modeling, right?
I really couldn't say on an area, on a specific type. Our statistics in terms of average increase are quite global.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
On with your presentation.
Thank you very much. Okay, 2596 Portage Avenue. So we are looking at a former Robin's Donuts, again, architecturally branded. Built in 1995, 2,250 square feet of leasable area. Now the city is, well, they initially submitted a value of $1,712,000, revised here to $1,643,000, and we are suggesting that a more appropriate value is $705,000, and that is for the business in place as opposed to this excess land calculation. Now, important to note that the proposed increase to $1,643,000 constitutes a 78% increase in assessed value, which is wholly inappropriate, I would suggest. Now, we are, it's a built-to-suit building again. The last use was as a temporary campaign office in the last civic election. And again, the property is currently sitting vacant. The land area is 41,040 square feet and it is zoned C2. So the last reported market rent in the property was Robin's Donuts. The rate was $60,000 per annum, resulting in a per square foot rate of $26.67 over that leasable area of 2,250 square feet. So we want to make sure that that rate of $26.67 was consistent with other market indicators involving chain restaurant leases. So on my page is not numbered here, I apologize, but on my page where I have my lease comps, I have a Freshie, I have a Robbins, actually the St. Mary's Road Robbins was at $27.50, arguably a superior location. So when we take the we have a Tim Hortons in here, an A&W, and Applebee's. So just to do a check on whether or not that lease was indicative of market, we came to an average net rent per square foot of $26.36 with a median of $26.38. So we think our $26.67 is reasonable. Now, in terms of our vacancy, we've applied 4% for this report. That's the city and our firm have both agreed in the last cycle that 4% was reasonable. Now, given the vacancy issues with this building, we likely could have adjusted that upwards, but we've capitalized the vacancy into perpetuity at 4%. We're not questioning the shortfall rate of $7.50. Again, we continue to apply an allowance of 7% of effective market income in our valuation for non-recovered expenses. So that's a standard allowance of 2% as a structural reserve fund, and 5% as a stabilized allowance for non-recoverable expenses. And those are, again, expenses that arise in the competent management and operation of the property. We've all heard this argument a number of times, so I won't dwell on it unless you like to hear more. But this is a good example of where there's going to be presumably a large leasing commission coming for whoever finds a tenant for this property. Now, based on the market indicators contained in the Altus Group 2020 Realty Assessment Study for Office and Retail, we're applying a rate of 7.5%. We used 7.5% in 2018. We see no cap rate progression in the market. And then our study also includes the sale of what I'll call a superior Robbins location at St. Mary's at a rate of 7.66%. So 7.5 seems reasonable. With all those factors taken into consideration, we come to a indicated market value of $705,240, and that is we've not included the land calculation. We didn't last year. The city didn't last year either. So we are suggesting that the value for the 2020 Realty Assessment Cycle ought not to exceed $705,000. I've got some photos of the subject. I did visit it. It's lined by residential. Again, on a large stretch of this part of Portage Avenue, there is vacancy, which would indicate that the marketability is challenging at best. And I've noted a number of times here that the pad lease sites have been up since at least 2006. That by looking through Google Photos timeline adjuster. Presumably it could have been up before then, but I know that I can say with some certainty that they've been advertising that pad site since at least 2006. So we are saying that this is land that's associated with the going concern value of the business, and again that the value ought not to exceed $705,000. Thank you very much.
Questions? Start with you, Roddy.
So in your workup, I can see there's, I guess there's been no allotment for any sort of excess land or anything of that nature.
No, there's not.
Are you of the opinion that there's no value, I guess, that's on that size of the land then, or?
Yeah, I think there's value in that land, to be certain. But I think that if you were to do we're not doing a highest and best use analysis. We're looking at at an income approach to value, and that's based on the business in place at the reference date. Now, the business model of Robbins Donuts is to have a larger than an average parking lot. If you look at most of the old built-out Robbins, they do have larger parking lots. This is a very large lot, to be certain, and there is value there. But it's quite clear that the market is not responding to that in any sort of material way. So no, we haven't had an upward adjustment. We didn't last year, or last cycle, the city didn't either. So we've stayed true to that.
Okay. That's a question I have.
Michael, did you have any questions?
Your income valuation, Mr. Story, on the restaurant itself,
Yeah.
$705,000 is obviously higher than the $616,000 that we proposed in our workup.
That's correct, yeah.
And that's largely driven by the fact that we've used a $26 rent compared to our $19
We've not modeled anything, we've done an actual site-specific analysis. And I think too, if I'm not mistaken, I noticed something here. You're using a restaurant non-chain parameter. That might be why. Robbins is a chain, right? So that would probably indicate a rate of around $23 to $25. So.
But you are agreeing that the restaurant itself is $705,000 higher than our 616.
I'm saying that it's higher than what your model's coming out with. The actuals are the actuals, yeah.
You also referenced the cap rate on a St.
Mary's.
St. Mary's.
Yeah.
That's in your cap rate study
Yeah.
here. And that's index number 2.
What page is it on?
That is on 12. It's
Page 12.
It's 12.
$2014 sale.
Yeah, $3 million, 7.6 cap.
And has that Robbins not been demolished and the site open for redevelopment?
I'm not sure.
So in that particular parcel, it was also Robbins that was part of the strip mall at the back. Correct.
Yeah, there used to be a strip mall behind it, yeah. Now, are you suggesting it was demolished and repurposed?
I believe that in that parcel, because it's neighborhood shopping center, I believe there was more involved than just the Robbins Donuts. I think there was a vacant piece of land at the back.
And that was in 14, so when are you suggesting it was demolished?
More recent than 2014. Certainly not at the time of the sale. That just confirming that that's the one that you were referencing in your presentation.
Yeah, that's the one.
And the conclusion in this cap rate study is that based on Altus's review that there has been no compression in cap rates over time.
No material cap rate compression from last cycle to this cycle, that's correct.
And you've arranged this particular chart of cap rates not in a chronological order, it's just in the order of cap rate from the highest to the lowest, correct?
I'm sorry, when you say chronological,
Well, you've got a 2015 sale at the top, and then I got a 2014 sale, then a 2015 sale, then a 2016 sale. The sales haven't been organized in any kind of chronological order. They're just presented here in the order of cap rate from the highest cap rate to the lowest.
Sure.
If you were to rearrange these particular indices by sale date chronologically, would the data suggest or show a compression in cap rates?
Are you suggesting that the average and the median cap rates would be different if we ordered them differently?
If you ordered them by date to demonstrate the effect of time on the sale price and the cap rate, would the information demonstrate that there may have been a compression in cap rate?
No.
Could I provide some rebuttal evidence?
Sure. You'll be able to, yes. You want to do it now or you want to finish asking the questions?
Well, it's related to this line.
You have to do it then.
Okay. May I answer?
Yes.
Yeah.
The notion of cap rate compression is...
Go ahead, I'll let you answer, Jared, while I look and see.
I'll wait till you're done. Just want to make sure we're on the same page here when we get to regression.
If you need another copy, I'll get it.
Yeah, we have the rebuttal evidence, but we've only got the one. Could we impose?
Yes, we could impose.
My apologies.
Do you mind if we carry on without you?
Yeah.
You do mind or we
No,
can't?
go ahead.
Okay. Go ahead, Jared, finish answering your question.
Sure. Okay, so when we're talking about cap rate compression in the market, we're not looking at the market's not looking at solely our table of sales that we're presenting to you. What we're suggesting is the cap rate is made up of three parts. There's the perceived risk in an asset or an investment opportunity. There's the principle of anticipation, how we assume that this investment is going to perform, and that's where we look at basically the easiest way to think of it is does this investment give me a sense of confidence or does it give me a sense of uneasiness? And then the third principle would be the principle of substitution. So when we say, well, should I invest in option A or option B? And if there's more risk associated with option A, we would go to the one that was less risk. That's just a simple economic theory of substitution. So when we're looking at cap rate compression, we're talking about abandoned investment in the mortgage and equity market, we're talking about the bond market, we're talking about the Bank of Canada's benchmark interest rates. So we're not talking about our chart in general. We're saying that the market in general is not indicating that there's been any cap rate compression from April 1 of 2016 to April 1 of 2018. That's what cap rate compression is comprised of.
Some of the variables that you allude to, though, don't they change over time?
Do variables change over time? Sure, they could.
So if I'm looking at the 5-year mortgage rates
Okay.
that you've got on page 2.
Yeah. You see a 60 basis point change, right?
Over time, right?
Right, yeah.
So I'm just suggesting that you presented some information, but it doesn't appear that time has been given consideration in establishing that the cap rates in general haven't fluctuated or changed over that time period.
So you say that again? I'm not sure what you're getting at.
Well, so you're saying that cap rates are made up of a handful of things: risk, anticipation, substitution.
Right.
There's this band of investment that all these things go into determining a cap rate.
Right.
Well, as all those variables change over time, from your oldest sale is 2014
These are different
through
assets.
to the 2016,
Okay.
but it's still an income stream. An investor's still looking at the revenue that's generated out of real property, and they're still making the same trip to the same bank to get the same mortgage financing at the same mortgage financing rate. And their risk is, am I choosing to invest in this neighborhood shopping center, or I'm choosing to invest into this retail warehouse? It's the same money at the same rate being invested in the same type of assets.
It's not the same type of asset, though. Tool Town is not the same as the old Papa George's, is it?
Right, but if I'm choosing as an investor in real estate whether I want to buy a Papa George's or a Tool, at the end of the day, the revenue and the risk, what am I getting out of these real estate investment? What can I borrow to buy them and acquire them? What's my return on my investment?
Right.
And I'm just suggesting that if you were to look at these chronologically, and you were to list the oldest first and the newest last, that you may see a compression in these cap rates that isn't illustrated in your chart.
This is a sample of a number of different assets. We've got restaurants in here, we have small retail, we have large retail. They're not, you're kind of mixing things up here.
Well, so for the same reason that you're suggesting chronological isn't going to tell a story, how can you come to a conclusion that there has been no compression if you're comparing
Do you
different
think the
kinds of assets?
7.6% for Robin's Donuts is not an excellent indicator of what the cap rate might ought to be in this asset?
We've already determined that that wasn't solely a Robin's Donuts.
No, we haven't.
Neighborhood shopping center,
Are you suggesting
in the
they-
property type class there.
You said that you think that maybe they demolished it, we have no info about that.
Neighborhood shopping center as a property type class there.
They bought the Robin's Donuts, right?
Did they buy it or did they buy the whole mall?
The whole mall, that's what I'm thinking.
Is the
That's
question.
my suggestion.
I don't know, is that?
It's my.
For
it's my
$3 million bucks, they
suggestion.
better have bought the mall.
Yeah, so maybe there's some involvement. Okay, fair enough. But in the last cycle, we did use a 7.5 cap, and so did you. So you're suggesting that there's a downward adjustment of 100 basis points for a coffee shop that's facing a vacancy problem with a large amount of land that has been marketed for 15 years and can't be occupied?
I'm just saying
Would
that.
that indicate the risk is going up?
The indications that, I mean, your average cap rate is below 7% from your study.
Yeah. I think this property is clearly there's a fair bit of risk involved with it. If you were an investor, would this not give you pause that one of the largest land developers in the city is having trouble having a tenant in there, and then also...
Mr. Chairman, whose questions are?
You're asking the questions,
Okay.
All right.
he's answering.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes, no, I don't want us to get off
No,
on a tangent.
and I don't want
keep
you,
us on track.
that's exactly what I don't want.
Yeah, yeah. The evidence that, unfortunately, I only had one copy of that.
It'll be here in a minute.
Circulating momentarily, and I apologize for, simply takes this data in this chart, organizes it chronologically, and it just, that's the.
So not by tax.
Do you have the actual sale amount for that property? Or the address? Or the Robbins that you said was for $3 million bucks? Where's that listed in here, in your paper?
Well, we've got it in the page 12.
On page 12, that shows a value,
Right.
but doesn't show what you were buying.
No, sorry, I don't have any documents or sales.
Okay,
I appreciate that.
is that for like all of the files, or is that for some?
We'll see, maybe the city will have it in their rebuttal.
It's just, yeah, it's just the first.
Okay,
Yeah, no, that's,
okay.
yeah, no, I'm not gonna ask you to do that again.
Go ahead and do your rebuttal.
So if you look on the second page of this, what we've done is we've taken the addresses or the indices right out of the chart that Mr. Story's presented on page 12. The top chart is the sales that occurred in advance or leading up to the last cycle and the last reference date of April 1st, 2016. The bottom second chart is the sales that would have happened post-reference from April 2nd, 2016 through to our reference date of April 1st, 2016. And if you take the average and medians, you can see that the evidence here, if it's organized over time, demonstrates that there may have been a compression in cap rates based on this sample alone. That's really the crux of the model.
Do you have any questions on the rebuttal information?
Yeah, I do. Now, in terms of the, no, you didn't include the broker studies here, but the major brokers, would they say that there's been cap rate compression in the market, or that there has not been cap rate compression in the market? Particularly in the retail market, because this, you've mixed all kinds of different assets, but if we look at the actual Colliers, for example, right? If we look at Winnipeg, retail, Q1 2016, low-end regional power centers, 5.5 to 6.25, these 6 to 6.5. So we're seeing in investment-grade property, we're seeing nominal compression. So we're not seeing a great deal of movement in cap rates. Suggest that that's probably a good indicator of the market at this time. And the CBRE is the same. Anyway, that's
that.
Yeah.
And we'll see if there's, you guys have done your questions. Lord, do you have any questions of Jared?
Just a really quick question. So
Sure.
what you're doing here in your workup is the same methodology that was used in the last assessment cycle?
Yes, yeah, the approach to the business in place, yes.
Okay, so that's why you haven't done the excess land and weighted it.
We've not ever done that, that's not,
Okay.
that's not been an issue.
And just one other quick question. When you took us through it, you talked about what values were used for the various factors in the last reassessment, yet the value you're proposing at 705 is less than the last cycle of 925.
Right.
Which was the key value that was changing from the last assessment cycle?
Oh, well, it would have been the board would have decided on.
What was the appeal?
That would be a board decision, yeah. So
But it-
we wouldn't necessarily agree with the 925, that's just what the.
But that's what your assessment was, right? At the end of the day?
At the end of the day, it was 925, yeah.
Right. All right, thank you.
Now, Jared,
Sure.
you said yours is not a model? You that 2667? That's the actual rent?
That's the actual rent.
That's the actual rent?
That was the actual rent in
Now,
place.
do you have a clearance from LATCO to bring that information forward, or?
What's the income expense that was?
I know, but he doesn't like that information being brought forward. He always sends a letter with that saying that it shouldn't be brought forward.
I can check with the principal in our office, but I think that's copacetic.
If you look in the city's package, you'll actually see the letter from LATCO. They always include it, that it's not to be used by the city. That's the back of their package. So I mean, I don't know how we're supposed to deal with this, and that's why I'm bringing up the question.
Sure.
If they're okay with us dealing with it, I don't mind dealing with it.
I mean, as far as I know, clear to use it. I'm
Okay.
using it based on,
So that is the actual.
that's the actual, yeah.
What, when they bought this property, there was another building on the site, was there not?
I'm not sure. I didn't see anything back to, I mean, I can only look back at my files to 06. So in 06, there was just the Robbins, so.
Bought as an investment and redevelopment, correct?
Okay. Not sure. I don't know about the purchase, I just know about the business in place.
The way it's set up right now, it's set up as a development.
It looks like, yeah.
So there is excess land there.
There's.
So maybe the city's wrong at 60%. What should it be? I mean, what should the parking ratio be then? I've asked them the question, I'll ask you, what should the parking ratio be on a
It
restaurant?
depends what the next use is. Now, the issue is, it's very difficult to take something that's architecturally branded and get a new tenant into it. So presumably, you'd have to demolish that building. You'd have to perhaps get a variance to change the use if you're looking to do something other than a restaurant. I know right now it's a C2 community, commercial community. So I don't know, I didn't do that analysis. I didn't do a highest and best use analysis based on redevelopment value. I value the income stream in place of the reference state, which is, that's what you're supposed to do for this exercise. So I don't know. There certainly is a fair bit of land there, and it will likely be developed, but at the reference state, it was a Robbins done.
Eventually it'll be redeveloped.
Presumably, yeah,
And I mean, so it does have value.
of course.
So if I'm looking at your $705,000 value, rather than the city's,
Yeah.
should we not have, and we took 50% of the lot, we'd still have $800,000 worth of value on the land. So you'd still be sitting at 1.6 million, roughly.
Which would constitute a 75% increase in value on the assessment, which doesn't,
Have you ever had subs before?
not this on our files, no?
Have you ever had them sub a property when they realized there was an error being made somewhere?
Oh, sure, in general, yeah.
In general,
Yeah.
would this not be looked upon as a sub?
I know in the last cycle, it was agreed by our firm and the city that extra land ought not to be valued on a separate, as a separate stream, so.
You had that in writing?
Well, I have an agreement. I think, did you work on it? Michael?
I have no recollection.
Okay, I didn't work on the file, so I'm not sure, but I know that, there was an initial value and a revised value, that's what we can see in my files, so. We agreed to value the income stream of the business in place.
But you gotta agree that we have to look at the evidence that's before us
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
and set a value
Right,
proportionally
right, but it's,
what we're seeing.
right, okay, but if we're going to look at the land value, then we have to look at the demolition costs.
Yeah?
We have to look at the vacancy has to change if we're looking at it as vacant land.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, the city has mixed their methodologies to the point where the values skyrocketed for an asset that's going to a redevelopment phase. That doesn't really make sense. If you're to look at it as land only, sure, but you have to not only knock out the value of the business in place, you'd also, again, have to look at rezoning, you'd have to look at vacancy, you'd have to look at market. Like there'd be a completely different set of parameters that you'd have to apply. So I think it's inappropriate to sort of pick and choose and then not come to a reasonable conclusion about.
That's one thing about the board, you do have to pick and choose.
Well, I would suggest that at the reference date, that the weighted value of this property would be the income in place.
I hear you. I think we've heard enough on this property, haven't we? Everybody,
Yeah, we're good.
anything in summation from the city?
We're okay, we've gone over the details of it, and fresh cycle, we're looking at it with fresh eyes, and we decided to make an approach at it that would be appropriate for both the excess land that we have an opinion on for value and the value of the building in place.
And I'll just say that a 78% increase value is inappropriate.
I hear you, and we'll deal with it.
Thank you.
Do you want to take a break?
Yes, let's take a break. We'll call the meeting back to order. The next property on the docket is 291 Bannatyne, and its amount of assessed value. Roddy, when you are ready.
Okay. Okay. So the file number is 19-3502. The roll number is 1306-096-6100. The assessed value that went out for the 2020 cycle as of April 1st, 2018 is $2,098,000. There's 2 buildings associated with this property, 3 premises. It's a 1-story building. The actual year built is 1907, and we have 2 values for effective year built, 1907 and 1974. We have 19,722 square feet as a land area, and 11,739 square feet as the leasable area. If I can direct your attention to page 11. I have included some pictures of the subject property in question. And so on the first page, on page 11, there's 2 images shown. One is of the blank parcel itself, and then one is of the pictometry overhead view. And on page 12, I've included 3 pictures of the subject property. It's a historic building on in the Exchange District. If I can direct your attention back to page 2. We have some sales on it. They're a little old, but the information's there to take a look at. On page 3, I've provided some comparable information as an attempt to show just the rent rates that are in the general market area. The rent rates were a little challenging to find some appropriate rent rates just based on the subject property being a historic building and its use as the nightclub, but I have attempted to include some good comparable information there for market data. On page 4 and on page 5, I've included some information on the parking, on the stalls, the rates on the stalls, and on the and some actual rates as of April 1st, 18. On page 6, I have the parking stream for valuation purposes. And so we have 22 stalls unheated with a monthly net rent per stall is about $90, which brings us a net operating income of $23,760. We've applied a 7% capitalization rate on it, which brings us a rounded value of $339,000. On the following page, we have the valuation for the subject property itself. And so we have a $13.64 rent rate per square foot on an area of 11,248 square feet. We have a basement rent rate of $4.08 per square foot on a 490 square foot space. And so that gives us a, with the parameters applied, the vacancy loss of 3%, the expenses of 2%, shortfall of $750, we have a net operating income of $145,103. We applied a capitalization rate of 8.25%. And when you, on page 8, it shows the summary, which is both streams, the parking stream summary and the income stream for the subject property. And when you combine both those values, it's $339,000 for the parking stream, $1,759,000 for the restaurant stream, or the subject property stream. And the estimated market value is $2,098,000. The following page shows the sample of the capitalization rates that are used by the city to derive their values. And that's everything.
Questions?
Yes, just a few. Okay, so this is 291 Bannatyne. This is in the Exchange District. Now, you mentioned that it's heritage, right?
It's heritage.
Which building?
I would say that the main building where Citizen is.
Okay. Are you aware that they're both heritage?
I'm not aware of that
So
information
it's
exactly.
the Sanford building,
Yeah.
that's class 2, and Ma's Garage is class 3.
Ma's Garage, yeah.
So they're both heritage buildings. Okay. So I guess my first question then is, do you think a heritage designation affects the value and marketability of a real estate asset?
So my own personal opinion, just on the limited knowledge that I have, I would believe that there are, from my understanding, there are bylaws in place on developing heritage buildings. I cannot speak really beyond that. I don't have a lot of knowledge on the bylaws required, but perhaps there would be some, there would definitely be some level of control as to how you can develop a heritage building,
Right. So that would,
from my understanding.
would that equate to a potential loss in market value?
It all depends on the use that the developer is going for. It could perhaps, if they wanted to develop the site to something completely different, or a use that's not currently there, perhaps.
And a heritage notice amounts to a caveat on title, correct?
I would believe yes. There's a
Okay, and now both of these, just so we have a heritage protection. Okay, now we are using the parameters of a restaurant, but this is a nightclub. So do you suppose that a nightclub is a inherently riskier business than a restaurant?
There could be a chance. Nightclubs do have some turnover over the years, so that there could be some risk beyond that.
That's a great point. So when you go through the history of this building, just in my own understanding, I've counted the old Spaghetti Factory, Brandy's, Mezzo, Vertigo, the Exchange Event Center, Republic, Ma's Eatery, Republic of the Exchange, Mazage, and Citizen. Are you aware of that? It's a lot of turnover, isn't it? Okay. And just to sort of set the stage for us, we've talked about all day here, is that every time that there's a new tenant, there's a leasing commission that has to be paid, and that's not recovered, right?
Leasing commissions are outside of the evaluation stream that we typically use, so
Okay, that's fine. Have you visited this property at all?
I didn't get a chance this summer.
No. Okay. Have you ever been inside Ma's Garage? You had a look?
I haven't seen this.
So no understanding of the present physical condition?
To the best of my knowledge, I mean, the research that I did with the Google images, looking at the latest uploads.
Yeah. But the interior?
The interior, no, I have not seen the interior.
Okay. Actually, your built is 1907, but that's Ma's Garage is 1907. The Sanford building is 1890. You aware of that?
I read some studies on the heritage background of the building, yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. We got the sales here. It's fine. Now let's talk about your rank comparables. Did you choose these yourself?
I did. My methodology when I was looking at the market is I was attempting to find some comparables that were in the area that I could use as barometers of the market data. I'm aware that a lot of these, that some of these comparables are newer than the subject property.
Yeah.
So I would point you to 155 Smith Street, 137 Bannatyne, and 260 St. Mary's Avenue, Unit 105. Those would be my best,
Sorry, which ones are your best?
better indicators, in my opinion, of the market data.
Which numbers again? Sorry.
That was 155 Smith,
Okay. That's La Roca?
Just
Yeah.
give the numbers.
Yeah.
137 Bannatyne,
Okay.
and 260 St. Mary's.
Okay.
What number on Bannatyne?
137. 137 Bannatyne.
Okay. Now, just to be clear, let's go through this very quickly. Now, number one is Shark Club. Okay, that's a casino, right? Predominantly.
My understanding is there's a sports bar component, a restaurant component, and I'm not aware if there's a casino component, to be honest.
Shark Club.
I don't frequent it. I wouldn't be aware.
I believe the use was.
I just know the nightclub and but
Okay, fair
definitely
enough.
there's a
It's on,
nightclub and there's
it's
a
on the skywalk. It's a
restaurant.
city place. It's next to the arena. It's a Shark Club.
Yeah.
So that would be different. Then number 2 is Boston Pizza in City Place. Okay. Number 3 is La Roca. Now that's the old Geo's. It was a number of different Storm. It was a Hertz rent-a-car, I think, for a bit. It's a fully renovated place. Number 4 is Highs, isn't it?
It is.
Okay. All right. Is number 5 Brown Social House or Merchant Kitchen? I couldn't verify.
Mr. Chair, I'm not aware if am I supposed to be speaking to the tenant? From my understanding, I'm
No,
not supposed to.
you shouldn't bring
Yeah,
a tenant.
that shouldn't be a.
There's a privacy issue. He's not supposed to bring up who it is. He's giving you a whereabouts just like you sometimes don't
Okay.
give the address.
That's fine, but in order to determine whether or not these are comparable, we have to know sort of what the use is. Now, 137 Bannatyne, that's an office space. The second level of 137 Bannatyne?
I can have in my data here shows it listed as a restaurant.
That's unit 2, that's the second floor. It's a professional office. Okay. I'm going to suggest that these are all superior. Now, the history of this property, now this has been in the news, so we're aware that there's...
That's post
no, there's
reference.
no, there's about 10 years of...
Oh, you want to talk about 10 years ago?
No, I'm just saying that it's the reason for the high turnover is that there have been some incidents, and it's currently, in terms of present condition, there is no liquor license, correct?
Oh, I'm unaware of this.
That's post.
That's post, but it's present condition. Okay, now, that's fine, so that's the main holding. I'm going to suggest that your rent comps are all vastly superior, and none of them are heritage, correct? Okay. In terms of the parking structure, I'm not disputing your rent, just the cap rate. So, we mentioned earlier that the heritage designation carries some risks. It's an impediment to the ownership bundle of rights based on the fact that there's a non-compensated taking at some level. There's a caveat on the title, so I would suggest that a cap rate adjustment ought to be made. But my question is, does the model capture the inherent risks associated with heritage designation?
So my understanding, again, going back to my previous explanation, is that the model does take all of the market data characteristics and then applies them and comes up with a cap rate that's appropriate for the property type. So in terms of the designation status, I can't speak to that because I'm unaware. I would say that this would fall under the puck that would be labeled as a restaurant, and that it would apply the restaurant model parameters onto the space.
Okay. So, now in terms of non-recoverables, you've used a 2% expense ratio here. Now, I guess it's sort of interesting when it comes to, you mentioned earlier, when it comes to how we have to get heritage permits to redevelop heritage properties, they have to fall within a certain set of guidelines, and we have to do the work in a certain manner. So wouldn't the structural expenses, wouldn't those be much higher than 2%? If the standard ratio is, or allowance is 2%, if you're under a class 1, 2, or 3 heritage designation, shouldn't that be higher?
So my opinion on that would be that the 2% is an accepted appraisal theory to apply for structural reserve,
Right.
and that there can be fluctuations in the capital costs that are incurred on the property, but they're stabilized over a certain period of time with that 2% structural reserve. So that's the standard rate that we apply to all property types, and should there be more on the historic buildings, I'd be unaware of that. I'm not a property developer.
Okay, and then the last question is, I guess, on the non-recoverables. If we have high turnover in this building, do you not think it's appropriate then to include an erosion to the income stream based on leasing commissions? Or 5%?
No, I wouldn't
No?
feel that would be appropriate as leasing commissions are part of the valuation.
Okay, but they're a reality in the market. They're a
They
real
can be,
cost.
they can't be, they can be, they can't be. It's difficult to say that, so we don't use it in our valuations.
Right, we did last cycle and all the cycles prior, we just don't now, but the market...
Every
doesn't
2 years is a fresh assessment cycle.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, think that's okay. Yeah, those are my questions. Thank you very much.
Lori, do you have a
I
question?
have no questions, thank you.
My one question is going to be on the parking.
Sure.
The 7% cap. Why?
From my understanding, that would have been model-driven on the parking stalls, and really, the parking in my work so far that I've been doing for my evaluations, it hasn't come up very often, so I'm not very knowledgeable on the parking cap. Perhaps my supervisor would want to speak to more if you wanted to have a better
The downtown
explanation.
parking structure, we haven't made a distinction on this. It's called a parking structure.
It is called a parking
It's in the
structure,
down-
not a parking lot?
It's called unheated structure.
Okay. It's called at the 7%.
As soon as it's enclosed, that's my understanding, it falls to structure.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
On with your presentation.
Thank you very much. Okay, 291 Bannatyne. Again, this is the original old spaghetti factory, as you might know.
Yeah.
So a number
We used to have
of
a Coke in
things.
there, do you remember that? Yeah, you remember.
I don't remember.
The railway car.
Yeah, the trolley.
Yeah.
The inside?
The trolley, Brandy's was right next door.
We're going to wear rage, mind you.
Okay, so we've got, so this is two heritage buildings that are together here. We've got Ma's Garage, which is historical, it was built in 1907. I don't believe the city has adjusted for age, which is fine. And then the Sanford building, which is originally a three-story building, knocked down to a one-story building. Originally built in 1890, the city is applying a age variance of 1974. We are using 1931, but I don't know if that makes a material difference. Okay, so we're at the corner of King and Bannatyne, effectively, and then Bannatyne Princess for the back entrance. We have an entrance at 111 Princess. So the parking garage, known as Ma's Garage, is covered but unheated, and it was originally built as carriage storage. So the leasable area of the building is 11,738 square feet, and Ma's Garage has 22 parking stalls. Now, I will suggest to you that the current physical condition of Ma's Garage is objectively poor. I was there on Saturday, and it's not. It's would likely fall outside the parameters of the city's downtown models, and I've also adjusted slightly for the fact that it's heritage, so it's challenging to redevelop a heritage building. Class 2 heritage comes with the objectives of preserving the entire exterior of the building and interior elements that are specified in the listing, and to ensure that all repairs are appropriate to their special architectural or historical interest, and to prevent or regulate demolition, removal, alteration, or repair of the remainder of such interior in the manner described in Section 5. So the crux of my argument here is going to be that heritage buildings are challenging. They come with increased costs, they come with increased risk, and we see over and over that it's not necessarily a desirable thing to have a caveat on your title. Now, there are two programs to provide some relief to owners of heritage buildings: the Gail Hammerquist Fund, as well as the Heritage Tax Credit. But as of today, and as for last few years that I'm aware of, those programs are all fully subscribed, so there is no actual relief for heritage owners, and it's often been described as expropriation without compensation. One of the only markets in Canada that doesn't make owners whole when they compromise their ownership rights. Okay, so in terms of the market rent, we are using the actual reporter's rent, which is $8,750. And that's monthly, and that's for a rent that commences January 1 of 16. And we're not disputing the potential market rent of the parking area. It's under the purview of Import, so that's what the rate is. Now, in terms of the vacancy, both sides agreed in 18 an appropriate vacancy rate of 4%. Was reasonable, so we've continued to apply this. We see no reason to adjust that up or down. The shortfall rate is not disputed at $7.50, and again, we continue to apply the 7% non-recovery expenses, 2% for structural, 5% for non-recoverable, what the city heretofore has called management fee. And I will suggest that when we have large turnover, that becomes more pertinent than ever. Now, based on the market indicators of for this realty cycle, we're estimating that a rate of 8.5% would be appropriate for the restaurant component. And for the parking lot, we have supplied a slight adjustment to capture the abnormalities of the lot. It's unheated, it's unconnected from the central business district, and of course it carries a Class 3 heritage designation, which may impede its development potential and which may give rise to some of its condition issues. So with all that being said, we come to an indicated market value on the parking structure of $316,800, where the assessor is at $339,429, and we come to a value on the restaurant of $947,592, giving us a total indicated market value of $1,264,392. And we will respectfully submit that the assessment on this property not exceed $1,264,000 for the 2020 assessment cycle. I've provided some photos of the interior. Again, it's a nightclub. These are present photos. The nightclub business is actually listed for sale. It's record, so we have these from the internet. These are current. You can see how it looks. Largely open space. Flip through what you like, and that gives you a sense of this nightclub with the lights on, if you will. And you can see that there's a kitchen in the back, and the addition of some of the furnishings, flooring is it'd be likely be a great deal of work for a next owner to go and do anything with the space that isn't necessarily a nightclub. So again, we are asking for a value of $1,264,000. Thank you very much.
Question?
I do have a few questions. Okay, so I was trying to understand, so in your brief, you use $8,750 a month as the rent,
Right.
correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
And is what?
$8,750 a month as the reported rent on the space. So if we go to the valuation on, I'm not sure if there's any page numbers here, but go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
On page 6. For the restaurant stream, we have the, I guess what you guys refer to as the potential net market income. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Of $94,161.
Yeah.
Should that not have been $105,000 if you're using $87.50 per month?
Let me see. Hold on, are we using the same square footage? Is that?
This would be in your brief.
Yeah, no,
It's coming from your brief.
Yeah.
I wish you'd numbered his pages.
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Page 6, I think, if you count them
Yeah.
just after the cover page on his valuation stream.
On
You're saying it ought to be
value-
105,000?
Yeah, 8750 times 12 should, through my calculation, be 105,000. So I'm not really sure where that 94,161 would have came from. And the difference there would have led us to a total value difference as well.
Yeah, no, you're correct. That is correct. That was my error. Apologize. So, yes, you're correct. 105,000.
Okay. Okay, so we'll just move on then, I guess?
You have more questions?
I have just a couple more.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so, okay, so we discuss that. So we have $105,000 listed as the rent, but you have provided 3 years worth of mailers for the subject property. I took a look at the 3 years of subject mailers, and I noticed that the total income for 2015, we have it as $95,000. In 2016, we have it as $125,000. And in 2017, we have it as $105,000.
Right.
So there seems to be a bit of fluctuation in the income that's
Yeah.
received. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, those are 3 different tenants, right? So there's Citizen is the most recent, right? You can look at the rent roll. So Citizen is the last one, that's the 17, right? And Republic prior to that. And then Republic prior to that. So those first 2 years are Republic, and then the last year is Citizen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And the last question I just have for you is on your workup again. Maybe I should ask next, actually, since it's part of the same valuation stream we were just speaking of.
Sure.
But so on your valuation stream on page 6, we have the expenses. You have it listed as $6,328. If you look on the 17 mailer, the expenses that are listed. Look at 17 mailer. The expenses that are listed, $32.96 for insurance, $1,200 for professional fees, and $300 for office supplies. When you add up those values, it ends up being $4,796.
5%. The management is a standard 5% allowance.
So you just applied the standard 5%?
5%.
Okay, that's all I need to know. It's just for clarification purposes.
On top of it, too.
That's right.
That's all good too.
No, that's the management. No, we have non-recoverables and structural. That's 7. The 5% is management.
Well, we don't call it management anymore.
No, but that's like actual asset management,
Okay.
not a non-recoverable expense.
Okay, I'm sorry. You're asking questions.
No, I'm all finished up. That's
All done?
yeah,
Lori,
that's all
questions?
the clarification.
Oh, Michael, did you have any questions? Lori?
Just, you're changing the 94, 161
Yeah, I'm
to
just trying to do the,
105. Can you tell me what it's
Yeah,
going to?
I will have it in a moment
thanks.
for you.
Anything else on your net? Is the entire building, there's no restaurant and a bar in here, is that?
No, they use the part that used to be Brandy's.
Yeah.
It's now, that's all just a nightclub.
So it's all one
Yeah.
nightclub? They took out those walls and it's all,
It's all, yeah.
It's all open now.
It's all one big open space, yeah. Yeah. You used to be able to come into it's called Ma's Eatery and it was 111 Princess, where you could come straight in.
Yeah.
And then the nightclub was, I believe at that time it was Mezzo or something like that.
the nightclub was entering from the southern corner.
Right behind Mezzo. Yeah.
There was an entrance at the other corner though.
No, the entrance has generally been, so it was the Exchange Event Center, and then they had a place called Mazza, which was a hookah bar, and they had separate entrances. They were different entities. But Citizen takes the whole place up, and I think, yes, and Republic.
What's that Mazzari? is it?
Massage?
Yeah. That's still there?
No.
Well, that's gone now.
That's not.
And I go by it every day.
Yeah.
But that used to be a separate restaurant.
Yeah, that would be where Brandy's was. Right, the Brandy's entrance was.
Right.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah. 111 Princess.
When did that get taken out?
Oof, well, the last occupant in that section was Ma's Eatery and Beer. It was a beer hall, basically. And it didn't last very long, from what I remember. But there was also the nightclub was coexisting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what did you charge? What were you saying your rental rate is per square foot then?
Rental rate per square foot. I'll have to look this up.
And what did you use to get that rate, whatever it was?
I used the actuals, but we used the wrong. That's why we used 94,161, and the assessors correctly pointed out that it should be 105,000. So 105,000 divided by 11.78, we come to 895.
895.
over 11,000 square feet.
Have you got any comparables that put us at $8.95 a square foot for that size of facility?
It's a nightclub. It's not a. I mean, we're not looking at a high-end restaurant or casino that's on the skywalk. So we use the rented place. We haven't used comps for it, but that's.
She's got no comps. She just used
We're using the renting
existing
place. We're using the expense. Yeah. I'm going to work this amended value of the.
Give us your amended value. $1 million and change. He's just giving us exactly what.
So that will be rounded to 1,153,000.
Yes. 1,153,000.
Yeah.
That's for the restaurant.
That's right. Yeah. Hold on. $1,470,000.
Geez, you're
That's the
getting
whole thing. I know. It's
getting closer to that.
Keep
Keep
going.
going.
Yeah.
Let's
So
keep
far
going.
out.
Did you adjust? I won't go into adjust it. I think we've asked some other questions, haven't we? Nothing in summation?
Just in summation, we've taken the approach that we've taken, and we believe based on our assessment that it's fair for the property.
Good, and?
And just in summation, I think that it's essential that the model and the department capture some of the issues around heritage, and that heritage properties ought to pay a premium to their cap rate over and above assets that don't have that issue. Thank you.
Very good. Let's move on to the next one. The next property will be 155 Smith. And again, just come out with a set value. When you're ready, Rodney.
Okay. All right. So we have, for file number 19-3213 for the subject property that we're speaking of, the roll number is 1209-325-3000. The address is 155 Smith Street. The assessed value under dispute is $1,515,000. So it's there's two buildings on the parcel, two premises associated with it. It's a one-story building. We have actual year built of 1969 and 2016, and we have effective years as 2000 and 2016. We have the land area as 12,078 square feet, and we have a leasable area of 5,763 square feet. So similarly to my previous presentation, I do have a recommendation. I did not get a chance to speak with Mr. Story as I was working right before up until the board here. So the recommendation that we have is, when I was taking another look at the subject property, the property is currently split into two premises. I'm not exactly sure if it's being used as 2 premises or if it's being used, and perhaps Mr. Story can help me on that one.
Yeah.
If it's being used as
Yeah.
one.
I think what's happening here is, and I noticed that I was just reviewing it before, it is one premises.
Okay.
I think what might be happening is you're capturing there's 2 patios.
There's patios.
There are patios, yeah. There's a rooftop patio. So it struck me as odd because I saw there was an increased rate on patio space, but we use that 2 or 3 months a year, right?
Right.
So it is a restaurant with a patio. So
Okay.
I think maybe it's the patio, and it was built after. See, it was Geo's. The owner was going to knock it down and build condos. Decided not to at the last minute. Ended up revamping the property. Got LaRocca to come in, and then maybe a year or 2 later, LaRocca built a patio. So I think that's maybe where that issue is coming from.
Okay. Okay, great. So that's good for us to know. So my recommendation was based on that approach, that it's being used as one restaurant. I'm not really sure why it was split into 2. So if we combine both premises into one premise, it actually has a reflection on the rent rate, it being more space now. And so what we did is we did a revised valuation on it, where we used the model-driven rent of 1969 on the square footage of 5,763 square feet, which was the combination of both premises into one. But we took it another step further after we did that, and when I looked at the brief that Mr. Story had provided, his brief has $19 as the rent that was used in his approach. And we're not going to dispute the rent that he had put in place on the property. So my revised recommendation has 5,763 square feet, which is both premises combined. I used Mr. Story's $19 per square foot rent rate. We applied we did our 2% other expense. We applied the vacancy of 3% and a cap rate of 7.35%. And it gave us a rounded market value of $1,399,000. $1,399,000, and that's
You
for
okay with that?
$1,500,000.
So good? It's done.
Okay.
Thank you very much. That's a rec of $1,399,000. Now that's cash flow.
Our apologies. Mr.
Yeah,
Chair,
it's all good.
for
We,
not being able to communicate.
This was right to the last minute before he came.
This is actually,
Just to see what I could
if you look at
find out.
my brief, I've actually got it. And just see, just so we can, if we can adjust this, just so it doesn't, we don't have to do this like year after year. It's just this guy here.
Okay.
This guy here.
Yeah, we'll go back and adjust and make sure that both premises are
What's
combined.
on the second page of your brief?
Yeah.
And I apologize, Mr.
Well,
Chairman.
go ahead.
You have a different leasable area on the assessment summary page.
Let's see, hold on.
On this assessment summary page,
Yeah.
you've got a different leasable area altogether.
Right.
So maybe we should have a conversation.
Yeah, let's,
we can sort that
and then
out.
there's also parking. You have us with no parking, you do have parking. I think there's 5 spots, something like that. Yeah, let's get we'll talk after this and get everything down.
Well done, gentlemen.
Wonderful.
The next property is 141 Donald. That's about it. Roddy, when you're ready.
Okay. So the file number for this subject property under dispute is 19-3510. We have the roll number associated is 1209-335-3000. The address is 141 Donald Street. We have a 2020 assessed value of $1,283,000. We have one building associated with the roll number, one premise, one story. The actual year built and effective year built are both similar, are both the same at 1991. 12,087 square feet is the land area, and 3,821 square feet is the leaseable area. can direct your attention to page 9. I have included some pictures of the subject property in question. The first top image shows the parcel, the outline of the parcel itself. The second image shows the pictometry of the overhead shot of the subject property. On page 10, I have some images of the subject property itself. It's the Ivory restaurant that's currently under dispute. And on page 11, I've included the parking that's associated with the subject property. And I've included this for a reason, because we had, in our evaluation of the property, when we approached it, we wanted to value it properly in a way that reflected the use of the restaurant on the parcel, while also recognizing that there's a strip of parking that runs along the east side of the lot. So if I can return your attention back to page 9. On page 9 of my brief, if you look at the bottom image on the parcel itself, the right, on the east side of the parcel, you can see a row of cars there, and there's monthly parking that's charged for these spaces. And so what we did is we just tried to capture the value that would have been associated with that excess land. So the valuation, if I can, so heading back to my presentation, on page 3 I have listed some comparable rents for some market data for the region, for different restaurants in the neighborhood. On page 4 I've included some sales comparables, just to show some sales data for some vacant land. And then if we look at the valuation stream on page 5, we have 3,821 square feet at $19.50 a square foot. We put a 3% vacancy on that, 2% expense, $7.50 shortfall, which are model parameters. The net operating income is $69,969, and we've applied a 6.5% cap rate. The capitalized value of the income-producing property is $1,076,446, and then we've included the additional land value of $207,000. And so then the total comes out to the estimated market value is $1,283,000. And page 6 shows the valuation summary that I just went through with you. And on page 7 we have the provided capitalization rates as an example of some of the capitalization values. And that's my presentation.
Questions, Jared?
Yeah, thanks. Okay, now this is an old Pizza Hut, correct?
Correct.
And it's architecturally branded as a Pizza Hut. You can see that it's called the red roof model. That's the old style of Pizza Hut, right? And it's very difficult to convert these because the HVAC is actually in the peak of the Pizza Hut. Are you aware of that?
I'm aware that there's a tenant in place.
Yeah, there's a tenant in place, but this. Okay. Do you think that having an architecturally branded building, do you think that the market would see that as a positive or a negative? Do you think an owner would get higher or lower rents based on that fact?
I think that I would say that the fact that we have a tenant in place would show that the market is accepting that it can still be used as a restaurant income producing property.
Okay, and do you think that we could get market rents, or do you think that would probably lead to sub-market rents based on?
I would say, again, there's ranges, so it could be a range. That would be up to the tenant in place and the owner. So that'd be beyond my. I would say for myself that in terms of general market data, that it would fall in the range of what the other values are being shown for restaurants in the neighborhood.
You think that it's comparable to your comps? You don't think it's inferior to your restaurant comps?
No, I mean there's Again, we go back, if you look at the area, yes, there are going to be some newer buildings. There's going to be some buildings that have perhaps more foot traffic in place, and they're set up in different...
What about the quality of tenant?
Again, it could be. I mean, these are all restaurants here that are being shown.
Okay. So
There's
this
a
is
restaurant in place in the subject property, so it would seem to be, I would say again, if you were to ask me which ones would be the most comparable from the list I provided, 333 St. Mary's Avenue 66, Unit 66, 155 Smith Street,
Okay, yeah.
and 260 St. Mary Avenue, Unit 105.
Okay, so without giving away the tenant
Yep.
number 3,
Yep,
333 St. Mary is in City Place,
yep.
and it's a multinational chain.
Again, it shows a range, right? So if you look at the ranges
Percentage
of market data, it would be one of the three most comparable that I would say.
Yeah. Do you think that that chain would go into an...
I say that I think it would be it would show that there is a range of lease rates that are being received in this neighborhood, and it would fall within the range.
Do you think there's a... So do you not think that the way that that building is, the current physical condition of it, the current, the architectural branding, do you think that limits the type of tenant that they might be able to get?
Again, there's a tenant there. It's a restaurant. They're operating.
I know there's a tenant. I'm asking you, do you think it might limit the type of tenant or the quality of tenant or the level of rents that they might be able to achieve?
I would say my opinion on the matter really is irrelevant if there's a tenant in place. Is there not a tenant there now that's paying a rent and that's operating in this space, and they've been there? They seem to be
Certainly not a
Driving in the
multinational
neighborhood?
tenant, right?
I would agree with you on that.
Mom and pop kind of place.
I would agree
right?
with you. It's a local
Okay.
tenant. Yeah.
What was your other best comp? I'm sorry. You said
I would say 155 Smith
okay.
and 260 St. Mary Avenue, Unit 105.
That's okay. That's 155 Smith is right across from the arena, right?
Yep.
Attached to a hotel. Okay. Okay, that's fine. Now, are you aware that in the last 3 years there have been 3 different tenants in this building?
I'm not aware of that.
You're not? Okay. Okay, and now the actual year built is 91 and the effective year built is 1991, so that would suggest to you perhaps there's been no permitted work to change the effective economic life of that asset?
I didn't review any of the building permits myself to see, but I would say, I mean, this is in our system, and I see no reason why it wouldn't have been the appropriate
Class D
activity.
construction?
Class D construction.
Stick frame construction?
Yep. D wood. Yep.
Did you check that land area calculation?
So what we did is we had the same approach that we had with the Robins, where we had simply taken a price per square foot. We did a measurement again of the strip of parking. So if I can direct your attention again to page 9. Essentially, we just did that rectangular strip of land on the east side where the vehicles are parked. That strip, we did a measurement on that and then applied a price per square foot to come up with our value for the...
Just looking at it, you've got a 3-to-1 land to building. Does that look like a 3-to-1 land to building to you on your page 9?
Well, I mean, there's parking that seems to be along the front and sides of the building there, the middle of the building, and then along the rear of the building. So, this, again, we're going back to how we valued our last. We attempted to value it in a manner that wasn't necessarily scientific with the
But just when
studies
you look
involved.
at you just look at the photo that you provided,
Yeah.
does that look like a 3-to-1 land to building ratio?
You know what? There could be a zoning issue with the fact that it's downtown. I'm not sure. I'm not
All right.
aware of that.
Move on. Okay, so we have no basement in this building now. In terms of, you haven't visited, but there's a single access point, correct? And in order to, you're suggesting that there's no parking associated with this building?
No, I didn't say that. No, there's parking. I mean, you can park along the middle of the building there.
It says outdoor parking 0. This building has 15 parking stalls dedicated.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's
It's not access land, that's their parking. Okay. And unfortunately, you have to drive through a gate that says Impark in order to get to their parking.
Do they not charge for those stalls that run along on the east side there?
When you go to eat at the restaurant? No.
Is there a monthly charge for the stalls that are along the east side of the parcel?
Those are the restaurant's parking stalls,
All along the east side there?
the 15 of them.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah. You see material difference. Okay, so that's fine. Now again, there's access and egress issues. You're aware of that? So you come in on, you come in on York, and then if you miss the turn in on York, you have to go half a block down Donald to get in, and you have to go through the second one. That's fine. Now again, I'm going to suggest that all of these rent comps are completely superior, and again, number 7 is a professional office, and I think that's appropriate. Now, I just have a note here that the city tried to claim excess parking in 2016. The board rejected it. In 2018, there was no adjustment, and now here we are in 2020, just as a point of reference. Now, the expenses, again, I don't answer at this point, but if there's high turnover, the city is not capturing space marketing costs or leasing commissions as a real erosion to the income stream for an owner.
For valuation purposes, we don't use those guys.
And your cap rate, how did you?
It's model driven.
That's model
6.5%. Yeah, maybe on a similar cap rate that was applied to all the other restaurants in the neighborhood.
But restaurant's a fairly risky business, isn't it?
There can be turnover, yeah.
60% of restaurants fail in like the first 3-4 years. Okay, that's fine. And then it might have a particularly risky issue when you have this architecturally branded building. I don't think that's a major issue that we shouldn't overlook. Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Lori, do you have any questions?
I have no questions, thanks.
Their sheet was showing $4,500 a month rent for the building. Is that correct?
For which side? Their mailer?
Yeah.
Their tenant? Let me take a look at you.
Tenant.
Yeah, that's what they reported.
I don't see any for the, again, listen to rent, but renting for $54,000. He's not showing any income for the parking.
Mr. Chairman, it's our understanding that the parking is operating in conjunction with the adjacent parcel, and that the in-park revenue would be recorded on the parcel to the immediate south, that the parking along the fence and the lane is reserved monthly parking related to that operation. And we're hearing today that it's
Restaurant parking.
the restaurant parking.
We didn't know that.
But this is new information, that our understanding of the operation and occupancy of that building dating back, as Mr. Story indicated, to previous cycles.
Yeah.
But they have an agreement then with,
My understanding is that it's parking.
they have an agreement with the
Within park?
Impark, do they not?
Not that I'm aware of.
Because they rent,
They've got 15 stalls for their restaurant.
Yes.
They have, that's certainly not one of these stalls right here. There's 15 stalls for this
Yeah.
restaurant, yeah.
15 or
It's
16.
just it's a little curious when the M Park is there. You drive in and you see the sign. It would.
It's because
They would tend to-
they wanted access to the other lot,
Yeah.
and that's the best way to get their
Okay.
traffic flow, but
Okay.
they still,
It's not a great thing for this.
but who owns
this
the
restaurant.
parking lot next door?
Who owns it? I'm not sure. I know it's an import lot, but I don't know who the actual owner is.
I believe there may be a relationship between.
To the owner of
There
the,
may be. I
Yeah.
can't see that for sure.
that's the only way you get access.
Yes,
Sign.
there's one access point, one egress point.
Yeah.
It's almost like if it weren't co-owned, you'd have some sort of gentleman's agreement or easement.
Maybe an easement, yeah, they think easement.
What time's Ivory stay open till?
Well, I know on Saturday they don't open until 5,
Yeah.
and their last seating is at 9:15, so they close at 9:30. Mostly a dinner place, right? I think they do lunch during the week, but I know on the weekends, I called them to kind of figure out that parking I'm going to ask them what their hours were as well. I looked them up again. I want to make sure. Last seeing at 9:15, closes at 9:30.
I don't know why we're asking you questions. You haven't presented yet. I was asking over here, but that's fine. If you want to answer the question for the city.
I thought you were looking at me. I'm sorry.
I was only looking at you because you were talking. You took me off my train of thought, too. I'm not very hard to lose. Go ahead with your presentation there, Kieran.
Okay, so 141 Donald. Again, we're in a architecturally branded former Pizza Hut restaurant, built in 1991. Leasable area of 3,821 square feet. The city is suggesting a 2020 realty assessment of $1,283,000. We're suggesting $763,000. Okay, and again, this is a wood frame structure. 3,821, built to suit Pizza Hut, and a number of tenants have occupied and vacated the space since Pizza Hut. The subject size is rectangular, and with a total site size, according to the city of Winnipeg, of 12,087. And I don't know that that's correct. I didn't do a land calculation, but just when you eyeball it, I don't think you could put that building in that parcel 3 times. It was closer to just 2-1. Okay. So, in terms of now we've done our approach based on the income approach, and that's based on the rents in place. So, the per square foot face rent in this property is reportedly $15.43. We applied $16, we rounded it up, and we have provided some rental comps that do support this. I will say that they are superior. This is an atypical property, so fine, but that's, so we're using $16, and I think we can pretty, that might be a little high, but it's $15.43, so it is what it is. Okay, in terms of vacancy, we have applied a 4% vacancy rate. Given the turnover in this building, that might be low, but that's just, we're trying to capitalize that number into perpetuity. So the city and Alta both used 4% last cycle. We don't see any material difference, so we can maintain that rate. Shortfall of $7.50 per square foot is not under dispute. Again, the 70% non-recoverable and shortfall and structural reserve, so 5% for non-recoverables and 2% for the structural reserve has been applied. And in terms of our cap rate, we have used a 7% cap rate. Again, we maintain that there's not been substantial cap rate compression in the market. We used 7% last time, and we're going to hold true to that. So with all these points taken together, we would suggest that the value for the 2020 assessment cycle not exceed $763,000. First page of my appendices, I have some photos of the interior. It's a East Indian restaurant. Actually, it has been for the last, it's been 3 different East Indian restaurants from 2015 till present. And you can sort of have a look at the quality of finishing. It's a converted Pizza Hut. Now, in the last cycle, the board ruled, actually in the last cycle, the city was defending 873. And the board ruled in our favor with 763, which is actually the same, we're using the same parameters. The economic reality has not changed, and so we're effectively asking for the same numbers as last cycle. And again, I respectfully submit that this assessment not exceed $763,000. Thank you.
Questions?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, just
Yes, you can.
your story on your comparable market rents.
Yep.
Which ones of the 6 are downtown?
2 is downtown, 4 is downtown, and 6 is downtown, and then 1 is, Gordon, so it's downtown adjacent.
4 is Lilith?
Yeah, so it's not downtown, but it's certainly superior to downtown.
And the tenancy column that you have there, the S's and the N's, What's that, an
Single
indication?
tenant or multiple tenant?
Okay,
So for example, the ones on Jefferson and Phillips, the ones
Yeah.
that are M's, those are in neighborhood strips.
strip mall.
But they are, now, just to give you a sense, the number one is a Canadian chain, number two is a Canadian chain, number three is local, mom and pop kind of thing. Four is also local, five is a national chain, and six is local. All superior, but reasonable. In terms of the tenancy, number three is probably the most similar, but it's suburban, so.
And then the effective ages that you show in that same chart, that's not the actual year built, those are the effective ages of the.
Yeah, that's right.
Like number 6, for example, I imagine it's a little bit older than 2005 in actuality. Would that be a fair?
Yeah, I mean, we discussed that property
Yeah,
today, that's
yeah.
where has been renovated, yeah.
Okay.
You're good, Roddy?
Yeah.
Lori?
I'm good, thanks.
And I'm good. Thought it on the paper. But I didn't. I guess we're moving to the last file. 600 Portage.
That's nice.
In the roll. When you're ready, Roddy.
Okay. The file number for the subject property in question is 19-2404. Rule number is 1209-085-9000. The address is 600 Portage Avenue. The assessed value that went out in the 2020 roll year is $1,989,000. We're discussing there's one building on the parcel, there's 3 premises associated, it's a 1-story building. The actual year built is 1975, the effective years on it is 2001 and 2005. We have a land area of 27,988 square feet, a leasable area of 5,427 square feet. And I would like to request that the burden of proof be placed on the applicant for non-cooperation, section 53(3)B of the Municipal Assessment Act, and if a reduction in assessment is ordered, that it follows section 54(3)2 of the Municipal Assessment Act.
Walk us through the evidence.
Okay. So if I can take your attention to beginning at page 10. The date at the top lists June 8, 2018, which would have been our second attempt to receive some the income and expense mailer. So that's the page that was sent out in English. This is the page generated that was sent out in French. On the following page, sorry, on page 11.
Yeah.
On page 12, we have the generic instructions that are included in the income and expense mailer. Page 13 follows similar. And then pages 14, 15, 16, and 17 is the blank mailer that was generated for the subject property. On page 18, I have the signature that from the tracking report that it was attempted to be delivered to the owner. And then on page 19, I have the envelope included, the scan of the envelope included. And you can see the timestamp of June 8, 2018. So I'd like to once again reverse the.
Yes. You challenging it?
Well,
A little hard to challenge this one.
hard to challenge this one, yeah.
Yeah, I think we're gonna move over to you.
Yeah. Hard to read this thing. This is
I was gonna say, can you guys get a better printer over there?
It's a little.
As we were moving
it's a
page
little
to page,
pixely.
it was getting worse.
Yeah.
It's a little pixely.
Pixel, yeah.
It all depends on how.
Just to
the,
be clear, this isn't what was sent out.
No,
No, okay. Can't help.
you're gonna be starting.
Okay.
You're up.
Thank you. All right, 600 Portage Avenue, this is across from the University of Winnipeg, former McDonald's, close to the old Blockbuster, remember? Okay, so we've got an improvement that was built in 1975, with an addition in 2005. Again, originally McDonald's restaurant. It's a retail strip containing 3 restaurants. One is a local mom and pop type place. Then we have 2 national chains. And we're at the corner of Portage and Langside. Total land area is 27,988 square feet, and it's zoned C2 commercial community. The city is requesting an assessment of $1,989,000. We're disputing that and asking that the more appropriate assessment be $1,776,000. Okay. So we have used the market rent. We use the market rents in place. They range from $23.43 per square foot to $33.13 per square foot. So an average rent of $29.48 was applied to the leasable area of 5,427 square feet. So in 2018, again, we agreed on the vacancy rate of 4%. The economic reality has not changed substantially, so we've carried through with that. There's no dispute on the $7.50 per square foot shortfall. And again, we believe that the non-recovered expenses ought to maintain. There's a change from the city's perspective, but in terms of how we value properties and how the market approaches these properties, we believe that 7% is still appropriate. And in terms of the cap rate, the city has applied 7.95.
Thank you.
And so have we. So really, this is a question of modeled rents versus market, and the 7% versus 2%. So again, I respectfully submit that the value of this asset not exceed $1,776,000 for this assessment cycle. Thank you.
Question? Roddy?
It's a little difficult to value the property when we don't have the mailer or any information associated to know what the actuals are. So
You don't use the mailer to evaluate.
yeah, no questions.
Use a model, remember?
Let's say to cross-reference it.
Yeah, we'll
Cross-reference, yeah. Do quality control. I have no questions on it.
Okay. Lori, any
I have no
questions?
questions.
I've got no questions. On with your report, right?
Okay.
Your model.
So our model on page 4, we have $34.84 in place for the first premise at 2,170 square feet, $28.13 for the second premise at 1,715 square feet, leasable area, and $28.38 is the rent in place on the third premise at 1,542 square feet. So that gives us a potential total rent of $167,608. We have applied a 3% vacancy loss, which is model driven. We applied the 2% expenses, and we also put a $7.50 shortfall in place, which gives us a net operating income of $158,107, and we put a 7.95% cap rate on that value, on the net operating income, which gives us a estimated value after the adjustments of $1,989,000.
So, question?
Sure. Yeah, no, not to belabor things, so we disagree on the...
We already know what you disagree on.
Yeah. Okay, no, my one main thing outside of the 5% non-recoverable is in these rents. These are modeled, but we actually have 2 chains, right? We've got Harvey's and Pizza Pizza, both national chains. But then we have a local, operator. So I guess I don't understand. Now, are you suggesting that the national chains are the $28 per square foot, and then the local is $34?
And so when I did my, when I did,
I'm getting the answer that you.
we had a little huddle there for a second. When I did my review of the values in place, the A2, that would have been associated with the national chain Hardee's.
A2 is Hardee's.
So that'd be the rent rate in place for that.
Okay,
The second one is the Pizza,
okay,
and the third one would be the Chinese restaurant in Hazelvia.
okay.
But again, this was done, and what I did was, is I just looked at the information you provided from the 15 mailer, and
Yeah.
I attempted to, because the mailer doesn't show any leasable areas, it doesn't really show much for information. And it's gross rent, so I can't really put too much weight on it, but for what it's worth, I did do some calculations to see.
After the value was calculated based on the model.
Yeah, this is all model. This is
So-
just something I looked at myself just
That's
to
fine.
see what the values are being reported.
So we have a local guy right next door in your comp sheet at $17 a square foot, right? Are you aware of that?
On which page, sorry, on the comps?
Your rent comps, comp 2,
Yep, 570 Portage?
that's right next door.
Yep,
It's a local chicken guy, right?
yep.
He's $17 a square foot. So it would appear that my $23 is more reasonable here. $28 I'm seeing.
It could be for that one comp, but again, this is a range of comps, so if you want to choose the lowest one on the list.
No, I'm not. Because so 1 is a multinational chain, 3 is a local chain, 4 is a multinational, 5 is a global chain, 7 is a global chain, 8 is a global chain, 9 is a global chain. So I think that these rents are particularly high. But the reason why that $17 sticks out is because it's a local operator. So it's I'm not. Yeah, I'm just saying that I'm not. I don't think you're too far off on the Harvey's rent. The pizza rent is a bit high, but the Azalea is particularly high, especially when you look at the neighboring properties. So
Okay.
we agree on cap rate. We're a ways away on management non-recoverable, and then that particular rent sticks out to me. I think the model is sort of.
That sounds like your submission.
That's my point. Yeah.
Thank you. Lori, did you have any questions?
No questions,
Of
thank
the city.
Yeah,
City came second this time.
yes, no, thank you.
No?
Doesn't always happen.
And I'm good. Gentlemen, thank you very much. It's been a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you.